The room was cold on purpose, not the kind of cold you forget about, but the kind that reminds you where you stand. Crystal lights hung above the table like frozen stars, and the white tablecloth was so clean it felt judgmental. This was one of those places where menus had no prices, and waiters spoke softly, like money itself could overhear them. It was my birthday, 35, a milestone they kept calling it, the way people say it when they actually mean deadline. I sat at the head of the table, though it didn't feel like an honor. It felt like I was being displayed. To my right sat Adrian Cole, my husband of 10 years. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his phone, thumb scrolling, attention elsewhere. I noticed the red dot at the corner of his screen. He was recording. Not by accident. To my left sat Evelyn Cole, my mother-in-law, a woman who had mastered the art of smiling without kindness. She flipped through the wine list like she was bored by excess. "We'll take 3 bottles of the Chateau Margaux," she said, snapping the menu shut. Then she added, without turning to look at me, "And bring water for her." I didn't react. "She doesn't have the palate for wine," Evelyn continued. "It would be wasted." Across the table, Talia Cole let out a small laugh, pretending to cover her mouth. Her husband Victor leaned back comfortably, already enjoying the night like it was entertainment he didn't pay for. I folded the napkin on my lap carefully. "Actually," I said calmly, "that vintage is very heavy. You usually prefer lighter reds. A Pinot might sit better." Evelyn turned slowly. "When you start paying for dinner," she said, her smile sharp, "you can help order it. Until then, you drink what you're given, or what's free." Victor chuckled. "Relax, Mom, it's her birthday. Maybe we can get her a soda." Talia smiled sweetly. "At least she tried tonight," she said, eyes flicking to my dress. "Is that from the outlet again?" "It's vintage," I said. "Vintage means old," she corrected, lifting her wrist so her bracelet caught the light. I recognized it. I should have. I paid for it, quietly, months earlier when their rent was overdue. Adrian finally looked up. He scanned my dress the way someone looks at a stain they don't want to deal with. "You could have asked Talia to lend you something," he said. "This place is exclusive, Arya. You look like staff." The words landed softly. That hurt more than shouting ever could. 10 years of marriage, 10 years of backing him quietly, fixing problems he never knew existed. And still, he couldn't stand beside me for one sentence. "I'm fine," I said. "I like this dress." Evelyn clapped her hands once. "Enough, we didn't come here to discuss her taste. We came to correct a mistake." The waiter arrived with the wine, pouring carefully into crystal glasses. Mine was skipped without hesitation. 3 bottles, $15,000. A bill I always paid discreetly so Adrian could look successful. But tonight felt different. There was energy in the air, anticipation, glances being exchanged. Smiles held just a second too long. Victor leaned forward. "So, Arya," he said, "how does it feel to be 35 with nothing to show for it? No career, no kids." "I have my health," I said, "and a roof over my head." "A roof my brother provides," Talia snapped. "Without him, you're nothing." I almost laughed. Evelyn didn't. "You're a leech," she said loudly. Nearby tables went quiet. People listened. Evelyn liked an audience. "I've watched you for 10 years," she continued, dragging my son down. "He is royalty. You brought nothing but appetite." Adrian shifted in his seat. He didn't stop her. He liked this. 35 is an age," Evelyn went on, "where a woman should be established. Since you aren't, we decided to help you." She reached beneath the table. I stayed still. She pulled out a box. Bright orange, luxury, the kind that made people stare. Talia gasped. Victor smiled. Adrian lifted his phone higher. "Go on," Adrian said softly. "Open it." Evelyn slid the box across the table. "Happy birthday," she said. "From all of us." I opened it. Inside wasn't silk. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was paper. Legal paper. Thick, stapled, familiar. Divorce papers. "We hired the best lawyers," Evelyn said proudly. "You get nothing, no alimony, no assets. You leave with what you came with." "Sign it," Talia chirped, "so we can order dessert." Adrian zoomed the camera closer. "Say something, Arya." I looked straight ahead. At the phone, at my reflection. They expected tears, rage, begging. They didn't know who they were talking to. I reached into my purse and took out my pen. Heavy, cold, expensive. The room went quiet. "Thank you," I said calmly. "This is exactly what I wanted." I flipped to the signature page and signed without hesitation. My name flowed easily. I capped the pen and set it down. "Done." Adrian stared. "You signed it?" I stood and smoothed my dress. "I did." I turned to the waiter. "Please remove my card from your system." Evelyn stood up fast. "You always pay." "Not anymore," I said. "I only pay for family." I looked at Adrian. "You wanted to be the man of the house," I said quietly. "Tonight's your chance." I walked away while their voices rose behind me. Out into the night. Out of the lie. They thought those papers ended me. They had no idea they had just started something they couldn't stop. They believed signing those papers freed them from me. By morning, they would learn who had really been holding everything together. I didn't rush when I stepped outside. That was the first thing that surprised even me. No shaking hands, no racing heart, no urge to look back and see their faces when reality finally hit. Just quiet. The valet opened the door, hesitant, unsure which version of me he was supposed to respond to. The woman who usually smiled politely and waited to be told where to stand, or the woman walking past him without breaking stride. I sat in the car, but didn't start it right away. Through the glass doors behind me, I could already sense the shift. Voices rising, confusion. Someone laughing too loudly. Someone else snapping back. They were reaching for the bill now. I leaned my head back against the seat and exhaled slowly. For 10 years, they had been very confident about who I was. To them, I was Arya Cole, the quiet wife who got lucky, the woman who married into comfort and clung to it, the one with no job, no ambition, no leverage, the charity case who should have been grateful every single day. That version of me was useful. It made people careless. Adrian never once asked where the money came from. He liked believing it appeared naturally. The way sunshine pours through windows you didn't install yourself. Evelyn loved the story even more. In her mind, her son was a king, and kings did not need to understand logistics. I started the engine and pulled away from the curb. Inside the restaurant, someone would be saying my name right now. Probably Evelyn. Probably sharp. Probably furious. Too late. I had learned very early that the safest place to stand is where no one thinks to look. While Adrian talked about vision and disruption, I learned numbers. While Evelyn criticized my posture, my clothes, my silence, I built systems that didn't need approval. Adrian's company wasn't born successful. It was rescued. The early months had been chaos. Missed payroll, poorly structured loans, ego disguised as strategy. He would come home frustrated, talking about betrayal, about banks that didn't understand him, about investors who didn't see the vision. I saw the problem immediately. He wasn't being targeted. He was being assessed. And he was failing. I stepped in quietly. I didn't announce it. I didn't correct him publicly. I created distance between his pride and the truth. I set up structures he never noticed, channels that absorbed impact so he wouldn't have to. Money flowed in after that, slowly, consistently, invisibly. Whenever something almost broke, it didn't. Whenever consequences circled, they were redirected. Adrian called it momentum. Evelyn called it destiny. They called me lucky. The car merged onto the road, streetlights streaking past like memories I didn't need anymore. My phone buzzed once, then again. Calls, texts. I didn't look. They would still be pretending this was temporary, that I was emotional, that I would calm down and come back to talk. I had already talked for 10 years. Quietly, I pulled into the driveway of the house they called Adrian's. The lawn was perfect, the lights warm. From the outside, it still looked like stability. I didn't go inside. I sat there for a moment, looking at the windows, the carefully staged version of a life that was never fully mine. Then I shifted into reverse and left. The building I drove toward didn't look important. No name, no sign, just concrete and steel. Cameras followed my car, recognizing it without instruction. The garage gate opened before I stopped. Inside, the air was cool and still, the kind of stillness that exists only where everything is controlled. I parked and stepped out, pressed my hand to the scanner. The door opened. This space didn't judge. It didn't whisper. It didn't require me to shrink. Screens lit up as I walked in, data flowing, accounts linked, structures layered carefully inside one another, each built to hold weight. This was where I actually worked. I removed my shoes and set my purse down, changed into clothes that fit my posture instead of hiding it, sat in the chair that didn't make me feel small. My phone buzzed again. One message this time, from Grant. "Ready when you are." I stared at the words. Everything I'd built had been designed to protect them, to cushion their falls, to keep the illusion alive just a little longer. Tonight, they had chosen spectacle over safety. I typed back a single word. Proceed. I leaned back and watched the first systems begin to lock. Accounts tightening, access narrowing, dependencies exposed. They wouldn't feel it immediately. They never do. By the time they realized the ground beneath them was gone, they'd already stepped into empty space. And for the first time in 10 years, I let myself smile. Not because I was winning, but because I was finally done pretending. While they argued over a dinner bill, the foundation of Adrian's world was already starting to disappear. They were still sitting at the table when the truth started to sink in. At first, it came as confusion, the kind people mistake for a minor inconvenience. Someone would joke. Someone would say the machine was broken. Someone would suggest trying another card. That was how their lives had always worked. Delay the moment until money quietly solved it. But this time, money wasn't answering. Adrian stood beside the table, shoulders stiff, phone pressed against his ear as if proximity alone could force it to cooperate. His voice stayed calm, too calm, the way people sound when panic hasn't fully broken the surface yet. "There's been some mistake," he said to the waiter. "Run it again." The card went back into the machine. Nothing changed. Evelyn crossed her arms tightly, lips thin with irritation. "This is embarrassing," she snapped. "We dine here all the time." The waiter didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just waited. Victor tried to laugh it off. "Come on, it's obviously a glitch. These places love drama." He slid his card forward, a practiced move, confident. Declined. Talia's smile vanished. She leaned toward Adrian, her voice sharp and urgent. "What's going on?" Adrian didn't answer. His phone buzzed in his hand. Once, then again. His eyes flicked to the screen, and something inside him shifted. He tried another card, then another. Each time the machine answered the same way. No. Nearby tables had gone quiet now. People weren't pretending not to listen anymore. Curiosity had replaced politeness. Someone leaned back in their chair for a better view. Someone else glanced at their phone, probably already typing. Evelyn stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous," she said loudly. "Do you have any idea who we are?" The waiter met her gaze calmly. "Payment is required, ma'am." Adrian cleared his throat. "Just give us a moment." But moments don't help when the foundation is gone. Victor leaned closer, his voice dropping. How much is it? The folder slid across the table. $15,000. Plus service. Victor's face tightened. He leaned back slowly. Adrian? Adrian didn't look at him. He was staring at his phone, scrolling, refreshing, swiping like one of those gestures might summon a miracle. Evelyn slammed her hand on the table. Call her. The name didn't need to be said. Adrian hesitated, then dialed. Straight to voicemail. His jaw clenched. She's being dramatic, Evelyn insisted. She'll cool off. But her eyes betrayed her. There was something else there now. A flicker of uncertainty she didn't want anyone to see. The manager stepped forward. I'm sorry, he said politely. But if payment can't be settled, we'll need to escalate. The word lingered in the air. Escalate. Adrian felt the room closing in on him. This wasn't a boardroom. This wasn't a pitch meeting where failure could be spun. This was a public space, and he was exposed. His phone buzzed again. He looked. This time he didn't pretend it was nothing. Color drained from his face. He lowered himself back into his chair, as if his legs had forgotten how to hold him. Evelyn noticed. What is it? Adrian swallowed. The company account, he said. It's frozen. Silence. Talia's breath caught. What do you mean, frozen? I mean, he said slowly, there's no access. Victor shook his head. That can't be right. Adrian laughed weakly. It is. The manager gestured discreetly, not threatening, just firm. Sir, he said, we'll need resolution. Adrian looked around the table, waiting for someone, anyone, to step in, to rescue him, to do what had always been done for him before. No one moved. Victor stared at the tablecloth like it might open and swallow him. Talia's hands trembled as she reached for her phone, calling names that weren't answering. Evelyn looked suddenly older. At that same moment, I was driving through quiet streets, city lights slipping past like a world I was finally leaving behind. My phone rested on the passenger seat, face down. I didn't need to see it. I knew exactly what was happening. The bill wasn't the punishment. It was the introduction. Back at the restaurant, Adrian stood again, this time without confidence. I just need time, he said. We'll settle this. The manager nodded once. I understand. He didn't move. Time had already run out. Phones came out now, subtle at first, then less so. Someone whispered, someone smirked, someone recorded. Evelyn's voice cracked. This is your wife's doing, she hissed. She's trying to humiliate us. Adrian didn't respond, because humiliation wasn't coming from me. It was coming from the truth arriving without warning. Eventually, someone paid. A phone call was made. Pride was swallowed. The family left through a side corridor they'd never used before. They didn't speak on the ride home. Each of them sat with their own version of fear, their own realization that something fundamental had shifted. Adrian stared out the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. He still believed he could fix it. He still believed this was temporary. That was the tragedy. Because while he was struggling to survive the embarrassment of one dinner, the thing he loved most was already being dismantled, piece by piece, somewhere he couldn't reach. And by the time morning came, there would be a door that wouldn't open no matter how hard he knocked. Morning didn't arrive gently. It came heavy, thick with heat, the kind that clung to skin and made every breath feel like work. Adrian stood in his mother's driveway staring at the empty space where his car should have been, blinking like reality might correct itself if he waited long enough. It didn't. His phone vibrated. He didn't want to look, but his hand moved anyway. Muscle memory stronger than hope. The message was short, cold, final. The vehicle had been repossessed. Adrian let out a sound that wasn't quite a curse and wasn't quite a laugh. He shoved the phone into his pocket and scanned the street, as if the car might be parked somewhere else, as if this were a misunderstanding. Evelyn's front door opened behind him. "What's taking so long?" she snapped. "You're going to be late." Adrian turned slowly. "The car's gone." She frowned. "What do you mean gone?" "Gone," he repeated. "It was here last night." Evelyn scoffed immediately. "Don't be dramatic. Arya can't do that." Adrian didn't argue. He just started walking. The office wasn't far, but it felt endless. Sweat soaked through his shirt, and every step rubbed blisters into shoes that weren't meant for distance. He tried not to think about why the sidewalks felt unfamiliar, even though he'd lived here for years. When the building came into view, relief washed through him. Glass, steel, his name still etched on the directory. This was real. This couldn't be touched. He reached the entrance and pulled. Locked. Adrian frowned and pressed his thumb to the scanner. Red. He tried again. Red. "Come on," he muttered, pressing harder like the machine could feel desperation. Inside, movement caught his eye. He knocked hard against the glass. "Hey, open up!" The receptionist appeared on the other side, hesitant. "You can't be here," she said through the door. "What?" Adrian snapped. "I own this place." She unlocked it just enough to step aside. "What's going on?" he demanded as he rushed in. The answer was everywhere. Desks half empty, chairs missing, monitors unplugged, people moving quickly, carrying boxes, avoiding eye contact. Someone passed him pushing the ping-pong table he'd once shown off to investors. "What are you doing?" Adrian shouted. "Stop!" No one did. He pushed through the chaos toward his office, breath shortening with every step. The glass door was open. Inside sat Owen Marks, calm, focused, shredding documents. "Owen," Adrian said, relief and panic colliding. "Thank God. Call the investors, the accounts. Something's wrong." Owen didn't look up. "There are no investors," he said quietly. Adrian laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "What are you talking about?" Owen finally met his eyes. "There was one source," he said, "one controlling structure." Adrian's chest tightened. "Who?" Owen slid a folder across the desk. Arya's name sat neatly at the top. Adrian stared at it, waiting for the letters to rearrange themselves. "She wouldn't," he whispered. "She did," Owen replied. "And legally." The room felt smaller. "Funding's been pulled," Owen continued. "Leases terminated, accounts closed, power goes off in 40 minutes. Adrian backed up, hand gripping the doorframe. "This is illegal. I built this." "No," Owen said. "She kept it alive." Footsteps echoed behind him. Two men entered, professional and expressionless. "We need to review your expense classifications," one said. "Personal travel, luxury purchases, and third-party transfers." Adrian turned and ran. Back outside, the parking lot mocked him. Every company car was gone. At the exit, a tow truck rolled past, carrying his Porsche like it was already forgotten. Adrian sprinted after it, yelling, waving, desperation pouring out of him. It didn't stop. The engine noise faded. He stood alone, chest heaving, staring at asphalt that suddenly felt hostile. His phone rang. He answered without looking. A recording played calmly in my voice. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable." Adrian sank to the curb. Behind him, the office lights flickered once, then went dark. For the first time, Adrian understood the difference between being important and being necessary, and he had just lost the one thing that made him either. The knocking started just after sunrise. Not polite, not patient, sharp, measured impacts that didn't ask for permission. Talia woke with a gasp, heart pounding as if her body already knew what her mind hadn't caught up to yet. The luxury bedroom felt unfamiliar in the early light, shadows stretching across furniture that suddenly looked less permanent. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Victor groaned beside her and rolled over. "It's probably maintenance." The knock came again, stronger. Victor swung his legs out of bed, irritation replacing sleep. "I'll handle it." He hadn't even reached the door when the lock disengaged. Metal clicked. The door opened. 5 men stepped inside. They didn't rush. They didn't shout. They didn't need to. Talia screamed. "What is this?" Victor shouted, scrambling forward. "You can't just come in here. This is private property." The man in front glanced at a tablet in his hand. "You have 30 minutes," he said calmly. "To vacate." Talia shook her head violently. "Vacate? This is my brother's place." "No," the man replied. "It isn't." Victor laughed nervously. "There's been a mistake. Do you know who we are?" The man didn't answer that. "This property is owned by Cole Holdings," he said. "Your occupancy was terminated this morning." The words hit slowly, like a delayed impact. Talia's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That's impossible." The men began moving. 2 headed straight for the closet. Another started tagging furniture. The rest stayed where they were, quiet, immovable. "Stop touching our things!" Talia screamed, throwing herself toward the closet. One man lifted a thick black bag. "You can take what fits." A shelf of handbags was swept into plastic like debris. Talia collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. Victor stood frozen, face pale, watching everything unravel without understanding how. "Call Adrian," he whispered desperately. "He'll fix this." Talia grabbed her phone, straight to voicemail again. "We have connections," Victor tried. "This is illegal." The lead man looked at him evenly. "No, this is removal." Time moved cruelly fast. Designer shoes shoved aside, jewelry tangled together, clothes crumpled without care. 15 minutes. Talia screamed about her bags, her shoes, her mirrors, her life. None of it mattered. They were escorted down the hallway, through the marble lobby, past curious eyes and raised phones. No one helped, no one intervened. Reputation didn't open doors anymore. Outside, the sun was unforgiving. Their car was gone. A notice fluttered on the valet stand. Victor dropped the bags in his hands. One split open, fake designer shoes spilled onto the sidewalk. Talia sank down beside them, sobbing loudly, makeup streaking, dignity dissolving in public view. I watched it all from afar, silent. This wasn't cruelty. It was correction. Their comfort had always rested on something borrowed. Now it was being reclaimed. As security closed the doors behind them, Talia screamed one word through her tears. "Aria!" She finally knew whose house it had never been. I closed the feed. Another structure cleared. Another illusion collapsed. And somewhere else in the city, Evelyn was still sitting comfortably, unaware that her turn was approaching fast. As Talia cried on the sidewalk, Evelyn was still getting her hair done, and the bill for her arrogance was already on the way. Evelyn sat in the salon chair like nothing in the world had changed. Her chin was lifted, her legs crossed just right, her reflection studied from every angle as the stylist made final adjustments. This place had always treated her like she belonged. Soft voices, warm smiles, respect that came from assumption, not effort. She believed this day was still hers. She checked her watch and smiled faintly. The party would be perfect tonight. People would come. People would see. They always did. "Done," the stylist said proudly. Evelyn stood and admired herself. The hair was flawless. Exactly what power was supposed to look like. She walked to the counter and slid her black card forward without slowing her step. "Put it on my account." The machine beeped, stopped. The receptionist frowned slightly. "Let me try again." Evelyn sighed in irritation and glanced at her phone. The card was run again. Nothing. The receptionist's fingers paused. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Cole." Evelyn turned sharply. "Don't apologize. Fix it." The card was wiped. Inserted again. Still nothing. "This is ridiculous," Evelyn snapped. "The chip must be dirty." The manager stepped forward. expression calm but no longer deferential. "Mrs. Cole, the account has been closed." Evelyn laughed once, sharp and dismissive. "That's impossible. I've been coming here for years." "Yes," the manager said. "And for years, it's been paid by Arya Cole." The name landed wrong. Evelyn's smile froze. "She doesn't have an account here." "She does," he replied. "She always has. You were listed as an authorized user." Silence spread outward from the counter. Evelyn felt it before she understood it. "She removed you this morning," the manager continued. "The total today is $1,300. Evelyn's breath sharpened. "You expect me to pay for this?" "That would be how services work," he said evenly. Evelyn reached into her purse and produced another card. Thinner, personal, declined. Her face flushed, then paled. "This is harassment," she hissed. "I will call the police." The manager didn't raise his voice. "If payment can't be made, we will." That stopped her. Evelyn yanked off her watch and slammed it on the counter. "Take it." The manager glanced at it without interest. "We can't accept that." Evelyn's chest tightened. This wasn't how humiliation was supposed to work. It was supposed to happen to other people. She gathered her purse, straightened her posture, and walked out. In the parking lot, she sat in her car shaking with fury. Then she did what she always did when she felt exposed. She turned on her phone. She went live. Her face filled the screen, perfect hair framing rage. "Do not believe the lies," she said sharply. "My daughter-in-law has stolen from us. She emptied accounts. She's trying to destroy my son." Support flooded in immediately. Hearts, sympathy, anger. Evelyn felt powerful again. Across the city, I watched quietly. I didn't interrupt. I didn't respond. I saved it. One public accusation, clear, unfiltered. She didn't know it yet, but she had just crossed the only line that mattered. When Evelyn finally drove home, still ranting to the echo of her own voice, she found a man standing at her front door, orange paper in hand. He turned as her car stopped. "Mrs. Cole?" he asked. Evelyn stepped out slowly, dread creeping in despite herself. "This is a notice of default," he said calmly. "Payment on the property has been missed. Full balance is now due." Her knees weakened. "That's impossible," she whispered. "My son pays." The man shook his head. "The note is held privately." "By who?" she demanded. He checked his clipboard. "Arya Cole." The paper fluttered slightly as it was taped to her door. Evelyn stared at her own reflection in the glass, the power she believed she carried draining away in real time. For the first time, she understood something she had always refused to believe. She had never been in control, and now she had nowhere to hide. By afternoon, Evelyn's voice was everywhere. Her words echoed through phones and screens, passed from one person to another with the speed of outrage. She spoke loudly, confidently, as if volume alone could turn lies into truth. She cried when it suited her, she shouted when it didn't, and people believed her. At first, strangers who had never met me took sides with ease. They filled comment sections with certainty. They shared her story like it was their own betrayal. It felt easier for them to believe that I had stolen than to imagine I had built anything at all. That was always the problem. Silence confuses people. Quiet women scare them. Adrian followed Evelyn's lead. By midday, he was sitting under studio lights, sleeves rolled up like he had just come from hard work instead of collapse. His voice cracked at the right moments. His pauses were timed. He told them he had trusted me. He said he let me handle finances so he could focus on building something meaningful. He said he came into the office one morning to find everything gone. He said I had planned it. He said I had betrayed him. Evelyn sat beside him, nodding slowly, hand gripping his knee like a performance. They spoke about love, about sacrifice, about being blindsided. They never mentioned the years I paid without credit. They never mentioned the debts erased before they could embarrass him. They never mentioned how comfortable their lives had been. The story moved quickly. Pity turned into anger. Anger turned into accusations. My name trended in places I had never looked before. I watched none of it live. I already knew how this part went. Power always panics when it starts slipping. It grows loud, it demands witnesses, it hopes noise can drown out evidence. I stood in my office, city stretched beneath me, and let them finish talking. Then I moved. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I didn't argue. I opened files. Years of structure unfolded quietly. Ownership records, contracts, loan agreements, the careful language of legality that doesn't care about feelings. I sent one message to Grant. Release it. That was all. He didn't ask which documents. He knew. Within minutes, the truth began moving. Not as emotion, as fact. Ownership records showed my name. Agreements showed my signature. Transactions showed where money had gone and why. People who understood numbers leaned forward. People who understood contracts went quiet. The narrative slowed. Adrian's story started developing gaps. Evelyn's certainty began to crack. By evening, the questions shifted. Why was everything in her name? Why was he spending company money personally? Why did every bailout trace back to her? Adrian's interview clips began circulating again, this time with context. Side by side with documents he never expected anyone to read. The sympathy drained away. Not dramatically, precisely. Evelyn posted again. Longer this time, angrier, poorly spelled. She accused, threatened, repeated herself. It didn't last. The words disappeared as quickly as they went up. Defamation has a way of silencing bravado. Adrian tried calling. Once, then again. I didn't answer. That night I released one final thing. Not a defense, not a response, an invitation. A quiet announcement for an event already funded, already planned, already inevitable. A celebration of women who built without asking permission. My name at the bottom? Nothing else. People understood. The phones went quiet. And somewhere across the city, Adrian stared at the same invitation Evelyn did, both of them realizing something far too late. The story was never about them. It never was. The shift didn't happen all at once. It started quietly, the way truth usually does, when it no longer needs permission to exist. One person asked a question that didn't have an emotional answer. Another person followed the paperwork instead of the outrage. Then someone with experience spoke up, and others listened. The noise began to thin, not because people felt sorry for me, but because the story stopped making sense. Adrian's words were replayed, slower this time. Listened to again, without sympathy guiding the ear. The pauses sounded rehearsed. The certainty felt borrowed. His claims didn't line up anymore. Not with the numbers, not with the timelines. Evelyn's posts aged even faster. What sounded convincing at noon felt desperate by evening. Her accusations read louder than her proof. People who had rushed to defend her began quietly deleting comments. Support turned conditional. Silence replaced loyalty. The truth doesn't need volume. It only needs time. By nightfall, the conversation had changed. Instead of asking how I could do something so cruel, people began asking how long I had been holding everything together without being seen. Finance professionals dissected the structures I had built. Lawyers explained why nothing that happened was illegal or impulsive. It was methodical, planned, earned. Adrian's phone stopped ringing. Then it started again, for different reasons. Invitations were withdrawn, meetings postponed. Familiar names stopped replying. The same world that had welcomed him when he looked successful suddenly didn't have room for failure. He wasn't angry anymore. He was afraid. That fear followed him everywhere. Into rooms that used to open automatically. Into conversations that now ended early. Into silence that no one rushed to fill. Evelyn felt it too. Her friends became cautious, their replies shorter, their concern polite but distant. No one wanted to be connected to something unstable. Power loves association, but it hates risk. I watched none of it directly. I didn't need to. I had spent years understanding how systems react when the wrong weight is removed. Late that night, I stepped into the venue one last time before the event. Staff moved quietly, adjusting lighting, setting glass, preparing for guests who understood why this gathering mattered. It wasn't about victory. It was about visibility. For the first time, I wasn't being discussed behind closed doors. I wasn't being underestimated. I wasn't being spoken for. I stood where I belonged. Across the city, Adrian sat alone, scrolling through the same images again and again. He finally understood what I had been doing all those years, why things never collapsed no matter how recklessly he moved. He hadn't built a company. He had been inside one, and it no longer needed him. Evelyn stared at her front door, the orange notice still taped there like a sentence she didn't know how to read. Her phone buzzed, then stopped. The world she once navigated effortlessly had turned cold and formal. Contracts don't respond to outrage. They respond to deadlines. I adjusted my jacket and looked around the room. Tomorrow would be public. Tomorrow would be final. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something settle inside me. Not excitement, not anger, certainty. The city looked different in the evening. Not brighter, not calmer, just clearer. From the terrace, the lights stretched outward in every direction, endless and indifferent, like they always had been. The difference wasn't the view, it was me. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the city hoping it would accept me. I was looking at it knowing I no longer needed permission to exist inside it. The guests arrived quietly. No spectacle, no unnecessary noise. Women who understood leverage without announcing it. People who didn't need to prove they belonged because their presence already did the work. Conversations flowed easily, not desperate or performative. This wasn't a celebration of wealth. It was a recognition of reality. When I stepped forward to speak, the room settled without being asked. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize anything. I didn't mention my past, my marriage, or the names that had tried to bury me. I talked about structure, about patience, about what happens when you stop shrinking yourself to protect people who benefit from your silence. They listened, not because of sympathy, because they recognized truth. Somewhere across the city, Evelyn sat alone in her living room. The house felt unfamiliar now, too quiet, too exposed. The notice on her door hadn't moved. She hadn't either. Her phone lay face down on the table. No notifications, no reassurances, no power. She finally understood that authority borrowed from someone else vanishes the moment the lender walks away. Adrian was learning that lesson more slowly. He sat in a half-empty room surrounded by boxes. He hadn't packed himself. The walls echoed in a way he didn't like. His phone rested in his palm, heavy, useless. He scrolled back through old messages, proof that he had once mattered. He didn't hate me, not really. What he felt was worse. Regret. Not for losing me, for never seeing me. Back at the venue, applause came softly, respectfully. I stepped away as the room returned to conversation, knowing my part was done. I didn't stay late. I didn't need to. Outside, the air was warm, familiar, honest. I walked alone without feeling watched, without bracing for judgment. Every step felt lighter, not because I had won, but because I had stopped carrying what wasn't mine. They thought the divorce ended my story. It didn't. It removed the noise. Everything I had built still stood. Everything that relied on me still functioned. The only things that collapsed were the illusions and the people who mistook access for ownership. I got into my car and drove forward without looking back. Not out of bitterness, out of certainty. Some endings are loud. This one was quiet. And that was exactly how I knew it was real. They thought they erased me from their lives, but all they really did was free me to finally live my own.